Hey everyone, this is part 4 of the Misadventures of a Cryptid Hunter series. If you missed the other parts before this, I'll leave a link below in the description. Go and check them out to get caught up. Also, please support the author and check out his other works. They'll be linked below in the description. Let's get into it. They say that time heals all wounds, and I truly believe that. Of course, lounging on the deck of a yacht with my two favorite lovely ladies on either side of me looking out over the crystal clear Mediterranean doesn't hurt either. I sighed a deep sigh of contentment. Why in the world would I ever want to go back? I thought of the times that I had been injured, the times that a mere fraction of an inch could have ended my life. I thought of the idiots I pretended to work with and my psychotic boss who had suddenly turned into a werewolf. Didn't see that one coming. I thought of Dolores and Billy, of how much I enjoyed being out in the woods with nobody to tell me what to do. And then it hit me. The answer that I had been looking for all this time. I enjoyed risking my life. Just like a skydiver, a race car driver, or those kids I've seen recording themselves walking on top of skyscrapers, I liked being chased. For me, there's no more pure adrenaline rush than being scared out of my wits, knowing that there's a creature stalking me that could shred me into tiny little pieces in the most horrific way. My mind settled in and accepted the thought. The more it sank in, the more sense it made. I leaned back in contentment, having one of the great questions answered made me feel even more at ease. I could have melted right through the mesh in the chair. So this is what inner peace felt like. I'd heard people blather on about it. Most times I just ignored them and went on with my miserable life. Maybe this was what Dolores was talking about, with being who you were meant to be. One of the ladies beside me stirred from her nap. She eyed me and smiled and then started rubbing my bare chest. After a minute, she got up, reached her hand down and helped me up, and then guided me inside. I watched the bikini bottom, which barely kept her butt covered, wiggle back and forth with each step that she took. She slid the door open, stepped inside, and threw herself on the couch. I slid the door shut and joined her. Yeah, there were some other aspects of inner peace that I rather enjoyed. On my flight home, I stared out over the ocean and realized for the first time that I was looking forward to going back to work. The thought startled and amused me at the same time. I guess there's no turning back now, I thought. I'm a cryptid hunter for better or worse. Worse made me think of all the times that I had been injured, which in turn made me think of Billy. I wonder how he's doing. Maybe I should have checked on him during his recuperation. I remembered that I needed to find a doctor to hire on as an on-call status. The only reason the man was alive was because his medic had been there. I needed somebody that I could call on a moment's notice. That doctor who had questioned Billy and me in his room sprang to mind. But I wasn't sure how to track him down, or more importantly, if he could be trusted. I would have to look into that. I pulled up a note app on my phone and typed in to-do list. The first entry was, find doctor followed by check on Billy, and find next cryptid. After a moment's thought, I added, check on idiot park rangers. With Dell gone, I guess I really was responsible for them. It would be easy to just quit and tell the park service to send somebody else to keep these buffoons in line. But some part of me really wanted to keep tormenting them. I mean, keep an eye on them to make sure they were safe, yeah, that's it. When I landed, I hopped in my truck and drove over to the hospital. I approached the front desk and I asked for Billy. What is Billy's last name? The receptionist said. I opened my mouth and then I realized. I don't know. She raised an eyebrow. You don't know the last name of the person you want to check on? It never came up. I'm sorry, I can only give out information to family members. Okay, I said, pulling out my cell phone and dialing the administrator. Before it had rung once, I spotted the doctor and headed toward him. Hey, what's up, doc? I said. He stared at me in confusion. I'm sorry, do I know you? You should, you treated me. Well, I treat a lot of people. Once who had been attacked by a werewolf, I said, leaning forward and lowering my voice. Yes, he said, his eyes lighting up with recognition. You and that young man who couldn't seem to get your story straight. I glanced around to see if anybody was listening. Yeah, how is he? How is who? My friend Billy. Oh, I believe he's gone. He's dead? No, he was released. Oh, thank God, I thought. No, he's fine. He should be fully recovered by now and ready to do whatever it is you really do. Speaking of that, do you have some time this afternoon? Why? I wanted to offer you a job. I have a job, thanks. Not like this. Not interested. How about if I pay you for your time just to listen? I don't think so. I reached into my wallet and pulled out 10 $1,000 bills. I handed them to him. Just listen to what I have to say, please. He gazed at the cash and then at me. Who are you really? He said. I pulled out a business card that only had numbers on it and held it with the money. Come over this afternoon and find out. He slowly took the money and the card. I nodded and walked away. I drove home and was surprised to find a truck in my driveway. I reached into the glove box and pulled out a pistol. I slowly entered the house, checking for the intruder. I would have to upgrade my security if random strangers were making themselves at home. I continued down the hallway, checking rooms when I noticed the smell. Someone was cooking. That takes a lot of nerve, I thought, heading for the kitchen. Madder than I had been in a while. I burst in through the door and spotted somebody standing by the stove with their back to me. Freeze, scumbag, I said, pointing my gun at him. He slowly raised his hands and dropped the spatula that was in it. Good, now turn around slowly. He turned around to face me. Hiya, boss, Billy said. Geez, Billy, you scared the heck out of me, I said, sticking the pistol in my waistband. What are you doing here? You let me pick a room. I assumed I could live here now since it would be easier when we go hunting. I observed the scars in his face from the last time that we went hunting together. Okay, kid. What you cooking? I said. Scrambled eggs, you want some? Nah, I'll pass, thanks. I gotta go change. I have company coming later. More? What do you mean more? There's been people coming and going through here constantly since I got here. I panicked for a moment and then the thought hit me. Oh, it must be the construction crew finishing up some repairs. Yeah, I noticed you've made a lot of changes to the place, he said. Is there anything that I should know about? I'll show you the secret passageways later. Right now I'm gonna go change and then head to my office. Enjoy your breakfast. Sure thing, boss, he said, grabbing the spatula off the floor and turning back to his eggs. I walked out of the kitchen and paused. Should I have told him that it was good to see him fully recovered? But he wasn't. He had scars on his face and who knew where else. Was he fully recovered? Could I depend on him when things got dicey? I shook away those thoughts. Hopefully we won't have to find out for a while. I went to my room, changed, and went back down to my office. I opened my computer and checked my balance on my dummy corporation. The amount was a little more than I had expected. There were emails from Marie about the investments she had made and how much money each one was making. I was happy to see that she had taken the challenge seriously. And speaking of seriously, I swiveled my chair around and unlocked the file cabinet. I pulled out the thick file that I got from Dell, laid it on the desk, and started leafing through it. With each page, my eyes grew wider. When I was done, I closed the file and sat back. My worldview had been forever changed. "It can't be real," I said softly, even though I already knew it was. I had personally encountered just a fraction of what was in the file, but my experiences didn't even scratch the surface. "What can't be real?" Billy said from the doorway. I jumped in my chair. "Geez, kid, didn't anybody ever tell you to knock?" He knocked on the inside of the door frame. I narrowed my eyes at him. "This here town ain't big enough for us two," I said with a half grin. "We're gonna have to do something about that." He hung his head. "Am I about to lose more salary?" I fought to keep my face straight. "I'll let you off with a warning this time." He brightened. "Cool, so what can't be real?" Don't worry about it, just more cryptid stuff." "Well, shouldn't that worry me? I mean, I am your assistant." "Sidekick." "I prefer assistant. It sounds more official. And besides, I would look horrible in tights." I chuckled in spite of myself. "So, what's the next mission?" he said. "Oh, slow down there, I just got back from vacation. You just got out of the hospital. Maybe we could let the supernatural critters infesting this park have a day or two head start before we go on our next hunt." He gazed at me with a frowny face. "Don't look at me like that," I said, fighting back a smile. "The answer is no." "Okay then, how about the tour?" I reached into the desk drawer and pulled out 2 plastic cards that looked like credit cards. I handed one to Billy. "Keep it with you whenever you're in the house." "Okay," he said, looking at it dubiously. "Follow me," I said, getting up and walking toward a very plain-looking corner. "You see the knot in the wood here on the wall?" "Yeah?" "Anytime you see a knot in the wood, there's a secret entrance nearby." I tapped my card against the knot and a door slid silently to the side. "Cool," Billy said. "Once opened, you have 10 seconds to get inside." I jumped through the door as it slid shut. I waited patiently for a few seconds until the door slid open again. "So, you were just going to leave me there," he said. "Well, I wanted you to try it on your own." I turned and started down the hallway that had lights built into the ceiling. They were bright enough to see, but not like broad daylight. And we reached a spot where a spiral staircase stood off to the side of the hallway. "Look here," I said, pointing at a lit plaque mounted on the wall. "It shows you what's in each direction of the hallway and what's up the stairs." The arrow to the right said office, the left arrow said main entrance, and the one pointing up said master bedroom. My watch beeped. I tapped it and the display showed a car pulling into the driveway. "We better go this way," I said, pointing left. "We're about to have a guest." "Were you expecting someone?" "The doctor from the hospital," I said, walking toward the main entrance. "Which one?" "The one that you almost told about our cryptid hunting." "Okay," he said. We reached the end of the hallway and I tapped the card against the knot on the wall. The door slid open and we stepped out next to the grandfather clock just a few feet away from the front door. "That was cool," Billy said, watching as the door slid shut. "Are there any more passageways?" "Yeah, but they'll have to wait for another time." I opened the door as the doctor was reaching for the doorbell. He seemed mildly surprised but recovered quickly. "Good afternoon," he said. "Good afternoon," I returned. "Glad you decided to come." I stepped aside and ushered him into the main hall. "Billy," he said with a nod. "Good to see you up and about." "You too," Billy said, instantly chiding himself for his awkward answer. The doctor smiled. I shook my head. "Would you like to go to the office to talk?" I said. "Of course." I started towards the office with the doctor in tow and Billy bringing up the rear. "Nice place you have here," the doctor said. Thanks," Billy and I both said at the same time. I glared at him and he slid over behind the doctor to avoid my eyes. The doctor grinned as we continued toward the office. When we stepped into the room, I stopped Billy. "Hey, why don't you go get us some coffee?" I said and then shut the door. I offered the doctor a seat and then went around to the other side of my desk and sat in my chair. "So, what's this job you would like to offer me?" he said. Straight to the point, I like that. I need a doctor to be on call 24/7 for emergencies. "Pass," he said, rising out of his seat. "You don't even want to hear me out. I work full-time at a hospital and I'm on call quite often. I have no desire to be at somebody else's beck and call. I can pay you more than the hospital." I seriously doubt that. I opened my checkbook and wrote a check for $1 million. I sat it on the desk in front of him. "I would pay you this much a year just to be on call and be able to be here at a moment's notice." He gazed at the check. "How can you afford to pay this just to have someone on call?" "And don't worry about that. No, if I were to work for you, I'd want to know exactly what I'm getting into." I leaned back in my seat and sighed. Just then, Billy came in with a coffee. "No, thank you, Billy," the doctor said, sitting back down. Billy found a chair by the wall and sat down to listen. I sipped the coffee and then sat it down. "What do you think we do?" I said, gesturing to Billy while holding the doctor's eyes. "I really don't know," he said, rubbing his chin. "Definitely something dangerous seeing the wounds you both received." "What kind of danger in your opinion?" I said, seeing Billy on the edge of his seat like he was bursting to tell the doctor. "I don't really know," he said. "I can't quite believe the nonsense you two were talking about in the hospital." Billy's knees were jumping with excitement. I rolled my eyes. "Okay, Billy, you can tell him before you pee on the carpet." I had no sooner finished speaking until he blurted out, "We're cryptid hunters." The doctor gaped at him and then at me. He seemed to be judging our expressions to tell if we were serious or not. "Okay," he said. "You've had your laugh now. How about the truth?" "Well, it is the truth," I said, pulling out my phone and scrolling through my pictures until I came to the Bigfoot that I had captured, lying unconscious on the ground. I handed him the phone. "Scroll through as many as you would like. That'll show you that it's not fake." He scrolled through picture after picture. His face remained impassive, hiding whatever thoughts he was having. And Billy, on the other hand, was still barely holding himself in his chair, just waiting for the moment to tell the doctor all about our adventures. The doctor finished scrolling and handed me back the phone. "This is real." "Absolutely. I was attacked by an honest-to-God werewolf. He nearly killed me." "I've never seen someone so excited by that prospect," the doctor said. "That's why we need somebody to be here at a moment's notice," I said. "After that attack when Billy was in the hospital, there was another attack that nearly cost a man his life. If the infirmary hadn't been here along with his medic, he wouldn't be here." "You went after a cryptid without me," Billy said. "I didn't actually go after him," I said, rolling my eyes. "He came after me." And Billy's hangdog expression didn't go away. "Did you want me to drag you out of your hospital bed and let that thing snack on you?" "I guess not." He said like a kid who had been given socks for Christmas. The doctor sat silently watching us go back and forth like a tennis match. Once we stopped talking, he asked, "What would my duties be?" Pretty simple. Treat me, Billy, and anybody else who might be injured. I'm going to assume you have a place nearby designated for treatment. I got up and started for the door. "I'll show you." The doctor rose and followed along with Billy bringing up the rear. We walked down the hall to the infirmary. I stepped inside and waited by the door, leaving the doctor to lead the way inside to look at the equipment. He took a long, slow lap around the room, picking up an instrument here and opening a drawer there. Finally, he stepped over to me. "I'll need some more equipment," he said. "Make me a list, I'll get it." "I see you already have blood on hand. I assume that it's yours and his." "Correct. Very astute of you to plan ahead like that." "Thanks. Is there anything else you would need?" "An assistant for if I'm unavailable or I have a difficult procedure." "This would have to be somebody you trust." He nodded. "Somebody that I could also trust to keep our secrets." He nodded again. "Would this assistant be on call as well?" "Of course. How much would they need to be paid?" $250,000 a year." "Done." I offered my hand and he shook it. "Would you like to see the rest of the place?" "I think that would be wise," he said. I took him on a tour of the house with Billy following along beside us. At some point, Billy lost interest and disappeared. When I was done, I offered the doctor to stay for lunch, but he declined. We discussed details and he left. Billy reappeared soon after. "Is he gone?" Billy said. "Yeah, he just left." "Dang it, I wanted to see him off." "Then why didn't you? Where did you go anyway?" "Oh, I just got sidetracked," he said, avoiding my eyes. "Whatever, I've got to go order the doctor's list," I said, walking away, leaving him standing there staring at the wall. A short while later, there was a knock on my office door. I glanced up and there stood Dolores. "Hey, stranger," I said. "Long time no see, how you been?" I motioned to the chair across the desk and she stepped in and sat. "I'm good, how are you?" "I just got back from vacation," I said with a smile. "Say no more," she said, returning the smile. "How's your sidekick?" "He seems better." "Does he?" "Yeah, why?" Just then, Billy poked his head in the door. "Hello," he said. "Why, hello, young man," Dolores said with a smile. "We haven't been properly introduced. I'm Dolores." "Are you the one who saved our lives, Wendell?" Billy said. "Well, I stepped in and bought some time for others to save you," she said. "So in other words, yeah, she did save our lives," I said. "Well, thanks very much," Billy said, stepping forward and offering his hand. Dolores shook it. "It was my pleasure, young man," she said, smiling. "I wonder if I could bother you for a cup of tea." "Sure thing," Billy beamed. "Anything for you." As Billy turned and headed for the kitchen, Dolores waved her hand and the door silently blew closed. "I came to speak to you about something that's been bothering me," she said, suddenly turning serious. "Okay." She sighed and hesitated for a long moment. "I'm not sure how much you know about banshees." Very little, actually. We have a code. We're not supposed to inform anyone that we've had a vision about them until right before it happens." "Well, that seems a little unhelpful." She shrugged. "Oh, it is what it is, however, you've put me in a position where I feel like I have to break that rule." "Why?" She paused for a moment, staring at the floor. "No one has ever treated me like you have." "I didn't mean to. You don't understand. I have revealed my true identity to others and every one of them has turned their back on me except for you." I sat back in my chair, genuinely surprised. "I don't know what to say." She wiped her suddenly moist eyes. "You've accepted me as a friend regardless of knowing what I truly am," she said. "Our friendship has been a gift." "Has been." "I came to tell you that you're in danger." "It seems like I'm always in danger anymore," I said with a grin. "This is different," she said without a trace of humor. "Someone close to you will betray you." "How close?" I said, leaning further back in my chair. "Not me, you idiot." She paused as Billy came in with a cup of tea. "Here you go," he said. She beamed at him. "Thank you so much, young man. I wonder if you have any honey. I'll go check." As soon as he left, she turned back to me and her face was set in stone. She nodded her head in the direction of the door. "What, I'm gonna get trapped in the doorway?" "No," she said, slamming her teacup onto the desk. "He will betray you." "Who, Billy?" I said, laughing. "He's the most honest, innocent soul that I've ever met. That boy couldn't hurt a fly." Which makes me rethink why he's helping me hunt cryptids. "I've had a vision," she said. "I saw you in mortal danger at his hands." Billy attacked me. Attacked and killed. Billy killed me? The vision becomes hazy at that point, but it seems so. I sat back in my chair, mouth wide open. "How many of your visions haven't come true?" She shook her head solemnly. "But wait, the vision that you had about Billy dying that brought you here to save us. It came true." "What do you mean it came true? He's still alive." "But he did die in the hospital." I opened my mouth to deny it, but she was right. The doctor said Billy died and that they had to resuscitate him. Just then, Billy returned with the honey. "Thank you so much," she said, smiling. Billy's smile faded when he saw me. "Everything all right, boss?" Billy said. I scrutinized the face of a person I thought I trusted and shook myself mentally. "Yeah, it's all good." "I've given him some distressing news about somebody close to him," Dolores said. "Oh, I'm sorry, boss. I hope everything turns out okay," Billy said. I stared into his eyes and all I saw was innocence. "I hope so too," I said. I drove to the ranger station the following morning, Dolores' words still echoing in my mind. "He will betray you." Out of all the impossible things that I had experienced over the last several months, Billy betraying me seemed the most unbelievable. It just went against everything that I knew about him. But what did I really know about him? I had never even met his parents. Of course, I'm his employer, not his fiancé. There was no reason for me to meet or ask about his parents. And let's not forget I originally hired him as little more than a human shield, in case one of these critters was about to get a hold of me. Wow, was I really that cold and arrogant? No wonder Billy's going to turn on me. But he's not, he can't. It's not in his makeup. He can no more turn on me than he could sprout wings and fly to the moon. Dolores must have gotten it confused. My thoughts were interrupted when the ranger station came into view. I sighed heavily, wondering what stupidity would pour out of this building today. I walked in and all eyes fell on me with what I could only describe as terror. I got a cup of coffee and headed to Dell's former office, which was technically now my office, until the ranger service decided to replace me. As I turned the corner, I saw Jeff sitting at my desk, facing the window with his feet propped up on the windowsill. I listened to his side of the conversation. "Yeah, that's right," he said into the phone. "I'm the boss now. That clown they put in charge, he has no idea how to run a ranger station. Oh, I'm telling you, I'd be surprised if he ever has the guts to show his face around here anymore. And Dell was a jerk, but he was 1,000 times better than this butt wipe." I stood there quietly listening as I sipped my coffee. I might just give him a call and tell him that he's fired. I just wish he was here right now so that I could tell him. He stopped talking as he turned and saw me standing there. "I gotta go." He hung up the phone, and before he could say a word, I whipped out my taser and squeezed the trigger. The hooks hit him in the leg and chest. He twitched like a fish as a strange sound that was half scream and half whimper emerged from him. "Stop that!" Nancy yelled from behind me. I whipped around on her as the 5-second charge ended and Jeff's body settled into the chair. "Stop what?" I said, looking at the taser. "You mean this?" I squeezed the trigger, sending another 50,000 volts of electricity surging into Jeff's body. "Yes, stop it," she said. "Wait, you said yes?" I said as the 5-second charge ended. "Okay, yes." I squeezed the trigger again. Jeff's body once again went into convulsions. Nancy tried to grab the taser from me, but I pulled back, making her hands connect with the wires and sending shocks racing through her body. She collapsed to the floor as the taser ran out of charge. I ejected the cartridge and then went over to the charging station and loaded up with a new battery and cartridge. I dumped Jeff's immobile body out of my chair and left him lying there face down with his butt in the air, unable to move. I turned toward the rest of the Rangers. "So, what else has been going on in my absence?" Ron and Sharon glanced at each other. "Nothing," Ron said. I put the taser back in its holster and regarded at them. "Aren't you supposed to be out patrolling or something?" They both nearly fell over each other trying to get out the door. Nancy stirred and got up to the kneeling position, clawing the edge of my desk to steady herself. "You've just committed a felony attacking 2 federal officers," she said. I pulled the taser out of its holster and put the red aiming dot right on her chest. "Nothing to stop me from committing another one then, is there?" "Please don't," she pleaded. "What are the words I'm looking for?" She thought for a moment. "I won't tell anyone." "Look at that, and I didn't even need to prompt you. You do have a brain after all." She straightened, glaring at me like she desperately wanted to say something, but I still had the taser aimed at her. "If there is nothing else, sir, I should go out on my patrol now." "Dismissed," I said, holstering the taser. For just an instant, she seemed like she wanted to come at me, but I kept my hand on the taser. She left the room and I propped my feet on Jeff's butt, which was frozen in the air as I sipped my coffee. "I just might like this job after all," I said, watching birds fly past the window. It took a few minutes for him to start moaning and eventually fall over onto his side. His eyes fluttered open and he wiped the drool from his mouth as he rolled over to the sitting position. "So, who are you talking to on the phone?" I said. He glared at me silently. I moved my hand toward the taser. "My wife," he said, throwing both arms in front of his face as if that would block the taser. "Oh my God, somebody actually agreed to marry you," I said, incredulous. "What kind of blackmail did that take?" His eyes burned with rage, but he kept them focused on the holster. "So here's what you're gonna do," I said. "Call your wife back and tell her that you're an idiot. Not that she doesn't already know that if she has more than 2 brain cells, which could be questioned if she married you." As he listened, his eyes teetered back and forth between rage and confusion. "Am I fired?" he said. "Call your wife." He picked up his phone off the floor and dialed it. "Hey, honey." "Yes, I know. I've got bad service here in the station. I must drop the call." "I was just saying." He glared at me and I raised an eyebrow. "That I'm an idiot." "What do you mean you knew that?" I did my best to keep from laughing. "You've known what for years?" "Oh, really?" "Your signal's breaking up. I'm losing you again." He hit the end call button and then sat brooding, refusing to look at me. "Am I fired?" I stared at him for a long moment, long enough to make him squirm. "Of course you're not fired." He breathed a sigh of relief. "I'm looking forward to target practice every morning when I get my coffee." His eyes grew wide as he glanced from my eyes to the taser and back again. "You wouldn't." My grin grew from ear to ear as I unholstered the taser. "Okay, you would. He squealed, covering his eyes with one arm and holding his hand out, as if to block the electrical charge somehow. I holstered the weapon and sat back in my chair. "I think you have a route to patrol," I said, turning to the computer. He peeked from under his arm and saw nothing pointed at him, and then he slowly rose and headed for the door. "One more thing," I said just before he stepped through the doorway. He paused but didn't look back. "Who's the greatest boss in the world?" I said. He tensed up for a moment, his hands formed into fists, and then he relaxed and his shoulders slumped. "You are," he said, "and don't forget it." He trudged to the door and out of the station. I turned to the window and watched him go. I could already see him mumbling. "Yep," I thought, sipping my coffee. "I'm definitely going to enjoy this job." I turned on the computer and started searching through the federal database for Billy's name. A few minutes later, nothing came up. He wasn't hiding anything, at least nothing that he had gotten in trouble for. I called the local high school and talked to the principal, pretending to be an employer interested in hiring Billy. The principal had nothing but glowing remarks to say about him. He had been in the top half of his class, never got in trouble, but never really excelled at anything. Just one of those kids who flew under the radar and was a solid citizen. I thanked her and hung up the phone more confused than ever. If Billy had some dark past, I could see where there might be a chance of betrayal, but there was nothing. The kid was as clean as a baby's behind. I opened my phone and called Dolores.
"Hello,"
she said on the third ring. "I'm just wondering how that kid could betray me."
"Not much for small talk today, are you?"
"I'm serious, this is bothering me. I keep wanting to say that you're wrong."
"I want the same thing, believe me, but I saw it."
"Can you tell me the vision?" She sighed heavily.
"I'm not supposed to."
"But you will," I said in a voice that wasn't threatening or pleading, just matter of fact. There was silence on the line for a long moment.
"It was dark and you were outside somewhere in the forest. Billy was beside you looking terrified, and it appeared as if you two were searching for someone or something."
"Like a cryptid?"
"Possibly, but something was wrong. You seemed more worried than usual. You weren't talking or acting like your usual self."
"Charming?"
"Incorrigible."
"Nice," I said sarcastically.
"Whatever it was, you both seemed to think you were getting close and then something happened."
"What happened?" She paused for a moment as if unsure if she could continue.
"The moon rose."
"Yeah, so?"
"And Billy changed."
I leaned back in my chair, not realizing that I had been leaning forward, hanging on her every word. He changed into what?
"I think you know."
I flashed it back to when we were fighting Dell. He tore Billy nearly to pieces with his claws and fangs. "He couldn't," I said, wishing that I believed it. Dolores didn't say a word. "He couldn't," I said a little more forcefully.
"I'm sorry,"
she said. I said, staring at the wall, envisioning my assistant, no, my friend, tear me to pieces in the middle of the woods. "What do I do?" I said quietly, almost a whisper.
"I don't know. I think things are already in motion."
"But if he was, I don't know the term, infected, I guess, wouldn't he be showing some sort of signs? Like peeing in the corner, carrying the paper in each morning with his mouth?"
"There are signs that you can look for."
"Like what?" I said, desperately looking through the desk drawer for a pen and paper.
"Insomnia, headaches, and flu-like symptoms."
"That's it?" I said, hoping for something more specific.
"As far as I know."
"How long until he fully turns?"
"Anywhere between 1 and 3 months."
My mind did some quick calculations. "It's been 18 days since he was attacked," I said.
"Has he shown any symptoms?"
"Not that I've noticed," I said, looking back over the last 2 weeks.
"You're going to have to keep a close eye on him."
"And then what? Is there any cure?"
"Not that I'm aware of, except a silver bullet."
"Not happening," I said. "It's not his fault."
"Is that what you would like me to put on your tombstone?"
Stop that. We haven't even established that he's been infected.
I have.
Okay, but I would like something more concrete than your vision, no offense.
None taken.
There was a heavy silence on both ends of the phone.
What are you going to do?
I'm not sure, I said, something unorthodox.
Of that, I have no doubt. Take care.
The line disconnected. I stared at the computer, not really looking at the screen but through it as my thoughts raced. An alert flashed up on the screen. Hikers had reported something strange in the woods. I read the report and immediately jumped in my truck. I drove home, flying, and I ran through my destroyed front door and into my office. I opened the book that I had liberated from Dell's office and flipped through pages until I found what I was looking for. Bill! I started to yell, but he was already standing in the doorway. I jumped a little, my hip sending me a painful reminder that it wasn't completely healed. Yeah, boss, he said. Stop doing that. Doing what? Sneaking up on me. Sorry, boss, he said, but I noticed a slight grin. Whatever, it looks like we've got a cryptid, I said, showing him the file in the book. That looks like a good one to get us back on track, he said, smiling. Well, what are you waiting for, I said, showing him the list of useful items to defeat this cryptid that was listed in the book. On my way, he said, turning and heading towards the armory. I stayed in the office and I called Marie. Hey, I need some repairs in the house, I said.
Already?
An uninvited guest did some extreme remodeling.
Alright, I'll have a work crew there in 2 days.
I also wanted to discuss something with you face to face.
You're not gonna pull a gun on me again, are you?
Not this time. I just need to ask you a question.
And you can't do that over the phone.
I glanced up as Billy returned and gave me a thumbs up. Most certainly not, I said, returning his gesture.
Alright, I'll be there tomorrow,
she said.
We can discuss renovations and whatever your mystery topic is.
Thanks, I'll see you then. I hung up the phone and rose, heading for the door. Who was that? Marie, my assistant. I thought that I was your assistant, he said as we headed for the front door. She's my assistant who makes money. I thought that I helped you make money. It's okay, son, I said sarcastically. I love you just as much as your sister. What? He said, looking at me like I had sprouted a second head. It was a joke. He still looked like a dog who had heard a strange sound. Never mind, I said, starting the truck and heading down the driveway. We drove for about an hour well outside of our territory, but then I didn't really have a territory. I considered stopping in at the local sheriff's station and offering a bribe to save time, but this remote there was no telling if they would even respond to a cryptid sighting. The closer that we got to where the report said the creature was, the more I wished that I had stopped off at Dolores' house and convinced her to come along for the ride. If Billy really was a werewolf, it would be nice to have some backup. If Billy really was a werewolf, I couldn't believe I was really having that thought. If she hadn't been so deadly serious, I would have thought this was Dolores playing a prank on me. But I knew that look when she sat across from me in my office and first told me. She wasn't playing around. You okay over there, boss? Billy said, dragging me out of my thoughts and into the present. Yeah, sure, why? You're just quieter than usual. Is something up? No, I'm fine, I lied. Just lost in thought. How have you been feeling? A-okay, I gave him the look. Well, I mean, I'm still having some aches and pains, but that's normal. After what we've been through, aches and pains are just confirmation that we're still alive. I guess, he said. Oh, and I've been having a little trouble sleeping lately. My spine froze. You have insomnia, I said slowly. It's not that bad, I take some sleeping pills and they help. Must be from all the injuries, I said hopefully. I'm sure, plus all the people in the house. All what people? You mean the workers? I don't know who they are, but they come into my room sometimes without knocking. The workers went home last week, I said. There hasn't been anybody in the house but you and me since the doctor left the other day. He turned pale. Then we might want to get the security system checked because somebody was in my room talking to me last night. Now it was me turning pale. Describe them. It was an old lady. I've seen her around the house ever since I came back from the hospital. Figured she was a housekeeper or something. Have you seen anything else? I said quietly. A few others here and there, but mostly she's the one that talks to me. What did she say? Just general questions. What are you doing there? How long have we been here? When are we leaving? She didn't talk much about herself. I figured she was having trouble sleeping too and just wanted to talk to somebody. I didn't realize that I had been staring at him the whole time until I heard the truck horn blaring. My head snapped up and I was in the wrong lane with a big rig bearing down on me. I swerved back into my own lane just in time as he gave me the finger and laid on the horn. I pulled over to the berm and put the truck in park. Billy was white-knuckling the "oh crap" handle by his door. You okay, boss? He said. I thought about the conversations we had been having and what we were doing here, chasing another dangerous cryptid in less than ideal shape. I thought about the fact that I knew they made Dolores' prediction moot by killing us both in a car wreck. But mostly I thought about the potential ticking time bomb that was sitting in the seat next to me, wearing a look of concern, asking me if I was okay. Sure, I said, putting the truck back in gear and pulling onto the road. I'm super. We didn't talk the rest of the way. We pulled into the park and I went straight to the ranger station. I told them that I had seen the report about the missing hikers and wanted to help if I could. The head ranger said he appreciated it and showed me a map of where they were currently searching. I thanked him and I headed in that general direction. The sun was hanging low in the sky by the time that we parked and got out to load up for our search. Man, I'm starving, Billy said. I wish we could have stopped somewhere to grab a bite. I flinched when he said bite. There's plenty of granola bars and bottled water in the back, I said. Just make sure to leave enough room in your pack for the equipment that we need. We loaded up our packs. I shook my head when I noticed quite a few granola bars going into his. We got the rest of our equipment loaded and then strapped onto our utility belts, which included a taser, a tranq gun, and pistol for each of us, with plenty of extra rounds. I hesitated seeing him armed as well as me. The whole "he will betray you" thing still weighing heavily on me. You would think that I would avoid taking him with me in dangerous situations if I wasn't sure if I could trust him. But I didn't have anybody else except Dolores, and I had no desire to drag her through the forest. We started easy, walking down the trail where the hikers had been seen last. The heavy backpack wasn't doing my healing hip any good. I noticed Billy was taking it slow too. For a moment I thought about turning around and heading back home, retiring and moving as far away from Billy as possible. But instead I kept trudging down the trail with Billy right behind me. The sun had set and taken most of the light with it. We pulled out our flashlights and continued down the path. The sounds of the woodland creatures all around comforted me. They were interrupted by the sound of granola wrappers being opened one at a time in continuous succession. I stopped and turned, shining the light in his face. "Are you nearly done?" I said as he munched on a bar. "I told you I was hungry," he said. I stopped dead. Behind him in the woods was a creature. It stood taller than a man and there were wings on its back. They were big and almost reminded me of a butterfly. No, not a butterfly, a moth. Its eyes glowed red as it hovered there staring at us. "Don't move," I tried to say without moving my mouth. "Slowly take your tranq gun out and hold it at your side." "What's going on?" he said, moving his mouth as little as possible. Our target is right behind you." He started shaking. "Stop it," I whisper-shouted through gritted teeth. "We've got this, just stay calm and let's take it down." He took out his gun as told and let it hang near his leg. The creature seemed to notice and hovered away a few feet. I reached for my gun and it disappeared. "Dang it," I said. "What?" "It's gone." He slowly turned and scanned back to where the creature had been. "Where was it?" he said. I pointed to the spot. "I see something," he said. "See what?" "I don't know, like an outline of a person hovering above the ground." I squinted my eyes and scouted the spot. "I don't see anything." He started walking toward it as if he hadn't heard me. It was almost like he was in a trance. I followed along behind him, shining the light around to make sure that it didn't show up unexpectedly. He stopped so suddenly that I nearly ran into him. "What's wrong?" I said. He turned toward me, startled as if he had forgotten I was there. "He was here," he said, pointing at empty air. I shone my light at the spot that he was pointing at but saw nothing. "You don't need the light," he said in a strange voice. "I can see the glow of his outline." All I saw was empty air. "You can see its outline." "Right here," he said, pointing. "I can't see it." He scanned around, his eyes seeming unfocused. "He's still here." I turned, flashing the light all around but didn't see anything. More disturbing, I didn't hear anything. The forest had gone deathly silent. "I don't like this," I said. He reached over and turned off my light. "Let me see if I can find him." The forest went dark as pitch without the flashlight. I had a hard time seeing Billy standing right next to me, let alone looking around for a cryptid that had disappeared and could be creeping up on us at any moment. "There," I heard beside me making a jump. "Where? I can't see anything." I turned on the light and panned around. "Right there," Billy said, pointing off to my left. I shone the light where he was pointing, and sure enough, I could see the faint outline of the creature hovering there. "How did you—" "I told you that I could see his outline glowing." "Okay. Then how do we get him if we can't get close enough?" "Let me try." "Try what?" He turned toward me with a look that I had never seen. "Just let me try." The intensity of his words surprised me so much that I nearly took a step back. "Okay, go ahead and try," I said, gesturing toward the creature who still hovered there watching us. He started toward the creature and I followed along at a respectful distance. I had pulled out my tranq gun and tried to hide it behind my leg. Billy walked toward it, his flashlight was off, and yet he still didn't stumble once. It was as if something was guiding him. Meanwhile, I was tripping over branches even with the light. He stopped and turned toward me, putting his finger to his lips and telling me to stop making noise. That snot-nosed little punk. For the good of the mission, I stopped, but I was fuming. How dare he do better than me? It was like we had switched places. He was the experienced ranger and I was the clumsy kid. I stood still and quietly flicked off the safety of my tranq gun. He must have heard it somehow because he turned back toward me and slowly shook his head. No, we were gonna have a serious conversation about this when we got back. I approached the creature and to my great surprise it didn't move. He reached out of his hand toward it and it hovered down to ground level. It stepped toward him and put its hand out, matching Billy's gesture. Their hands were just about to touch when the creature screamed. Billy jumped back as it thrashed around, falling to the ground in convulsions before laying still. I stepped up beside Billy and admired my handiwork, pulling the tranq dart out of the creature's side. Not a bad shot if I do say so myself, I said. Billy's eyes burned with rage. Why did you do that? He said. Do what? Shoot him. Well, that's what we came here to do, I said, looking at him incredulously. He stepped toward me, looking every bit like he wanted to take a swing at me. His eyes burned with rage. and then suddenly, as if somebody had flipped a switch, he stopped and stared at me, and then he shook his head violently as if trying to shake out the cobwebs and walked away toward the trail. "Where are you going?" I called after him, but he refused to turn or say anything. I shrugged and I called the man. 10 minutes later, his soldiers were carrying the creature out of the forest to the clearing where their helicopter had landed. "Good work," the man said, shaking my hand. I can't take all the credit. Billy distracted it so that I could take my shot. He scanned around. "Where is he?" "I don't know, he took off down the trail after I shot it." "Why?" "He was doing some weird thing with the creature. It was like he was connected to it somehow." "How's he been feeling?" "Oh, healing just like me," I said. "Other than that, the same old Billy." "Except for tonight." "Except for tonight," I agreed. He stared at me looking very serious. "I would like to take him with me and do some tests." No sale," I said. "He's doing fine, the creature just got to him. Maybe he had a butterfly collection as a kid." "You do remember that he was bit by a werewolf?" "Really?" I said sarcastically. "I had no idea. It must have been when I was fighting for my life." "Alright, let's not get into that again. I'm just saying you should be very careful." Thanks, Dad. I'll make sure to fill the car up before I bring it home." "Idiot," he said without a hint of a grin. "Seriously, I appreciate the concern, but Billy's fine." He grunted and then turned and headed for the helicopter. I watched as they flew away into the night. I should have asked for a lift to my truck, but I didn't need to answer any more awkward questions. Why didn't I tell him about Dolores' vision? Because he would have taken Billy right then no matter how much I protested. I still wanted to protect the kid even though he might hideously tear me to pieces. Perhaps I should rethink telling the man. I trudged along the trail, seeing all kinds of glowing eyes staring at me as I went. "Not tonight," I said to the eyes. "I'm tired and I already caught my quota." The eyes didn't go away but didn't get any closer either. When I got to my truck, Billy was leaning against it. I unlocked the doors and we both got in without a word. I drove back in silence, concentrating on the road while he concentrated on staring out the window and brooding. We were almost home when he finally spoke. "Why did you do that?" he said. "Do what?" "Shoot him and turn him over like some animal." "It is an animal," I said. "That's what we do. That's literally the entire reason we're there." What? He was a male of his species. How do you know that? Never mind. No, you started this, tell me. How did you know? He sighed. "Oh, because he told me." "What?" "I can't explain it, okay? It was just a feeling I got when I was looking for him." "You got a feeling that this thing was talking to you." "I knew you wouldn't understand," he said, turning back toward his window. I drove the last few miles in silence. When we got there, he got out of the truck and went inside. I sat there for a moment, feeling every bit like the father of a teenager who just made the "you don't understand me" speech. I never signed up for this. I just wanted to make some money and have somebody else around when things went bad. I dragged myself inside, feeling more tired than I had in a long time. I stepped through the opening that used to be a door only to find Billy standing near the grandfather clock facing the wall and talking. "He doesn't understand like you do," he said to the air. "I just can't talk to." He stopped and glared at me, then turned back to the empty wall and said, "Oh, we'll talk later." He walked away, heading up the steps. "I thought you said you were hungry," I called after him. "I lost my appetite." He disappeared down the hallway toward the bedrooms as I approached the empty spot where he had been standing. For some reason, I felt a chill but couldn't find anything that he could be talking to. It was literally an empty section of wall. I shook my head and went to the kitchen to grab a snack and then up to my room. When I passed Billy's doorway, I could hear him talking to someone. I didn't bother to ask any more questions. I was just too tired to deal with it.